Yeah, well, how do you follow on from those two talks? And hopefully mine will be resonating in the same sort of light. Absolutely, Afi, everything that Brian said in the first presentation, and also what you said, Charles. Yeah, thinking the same things, talking the same stuff. So let me share my slides. And there we go. Hopefully you can see that. Great. I do want to share a little bit of talk about the power of experiential learning. And I want to share with you my journey to the Antarctic Islands, which I was very lucky to get to go down to the Auckland Islands last November with Doc, with the yellow-eyed penguin annual count. So absolutely an amazing experience. We were there for 2 weeks, and this was a shot leaving Bluff. Challenges were, I've never actually been, I go fishing a lot, Raglan, Coromandel, but this was a completely different experience, leaving the bottom of the South Island, heading out 465 kilometres off the bottom of New Zealand South Island. For me, the challenge was really not seeing land at all. And of course, hanging out in a 25-metre yacht with 12 people, which I'd only just met in very close quarters. The trip down was absolutely spectacular. In fact, the crew said it was one of the best trips they'd had weather-wise. Absolutely beautiful. Of course, it wasn't always like that. 6-metre swells coming back wasn't as pleasant. So the Auckland Islands are spectacular. They are an absolutely beautiful environment, but extremely harsh. So it rains there 25 out of 30 days of the month, every month, all through the year. Cold, windy, but again, absolutely spectacular. And there's the yacht where we slept, ate, and did a lot of our work on. And everywhere you look, we're surrounded by wildlife. And there's some sea lions there just from looking at us on the inflatable. Of course, yellow-eyed penguins. This was on Enderby Island, pest-free. Absolutely amazing to get to see these animals in their natural habitat without pests. And this is just a beautiful shot of them looking over to the yacht. These are adults. You can tell that because there's the yellow part goes right around the back of their head there. Juveniles don't have that fully formed yet. Wildlife is, I still just get blown away by the amount of wildlife and how close you can get to it. These albatross were just absolutely spectacular, and you don't really get a sense of how large these animals are from this photograph, but they're absolutely beautiful. Again, you know, lots of penguins. For me as a biologist and a teacher, going to the Auckland Islands and on the yellow-eyed penguin count, I got to actually do some real field work. Doc had a really neat methodology. Oh, when I say neat, I meant robust. The methodology was we count from 5 a.m. in the morning till 9 a.m. in the morning. We did that most days, weather permitting. We could only count penguins that entered the water or exited the water. Of course, there was a lot of penguins which came down to the water and would assess whether or not they jumped in or not, and some didn't. Some went straight back up into the bush for various reasons. But that was part of what I loved, was that I was out there doing it in the real world. And you can see here the Southern Ocean just at its harshest, huge kelp in the background. Everything is large on the Auckland Islands. And kakariki, which are absolutely amazing. I have not actually seen kakariki in the on the mainland in the wild. When I worked at the zoo, I bred them prolifically, but was just an absolute buzz for me to see them in their natural habitat, and it blew my mind. Every day it was like I was on a sensory overload. There was so much to see, so much to do. It was just mind-blowing. Gorgeous little elephant seal there, just hanging out at the beach. This is what you come across when you go for our little adventures and walks after we've done our field work. And the sea lions are just amazing animals. Of course, they were a major hazard, and they are very aggressive. And I mean, in this photo, they do rush at you, and a bite from a sea lion is quite dangerous. In fact, it's probably a helicopter. Actually, a helicopter can't get to the Auckland Islands. They've got to stop halfway through onto a ship to refuel. So, you're kind of in the crap if you get hurt a little bit. When we think about health and safety, yes, Doc had a very strict health and safety kind of policy and guidelines when we were down there, but actually the risks we took were risky, and I just loved it. It puts you out of your comfort zone. And this photo is of the rata bush. So basically rata is the only large tree on the Auckland Islands. And when you look up, this is the view you get. We weren't there, or they were just about to break out into flower when we were there, but I'd imagine in summer it would be spectacularly just covered in red. Absolutely amazing. Some more views from some of our treks that we went up to. For me, it was just mind-blowing. This photograph looking straight down into the Southern Ocean, full of absolutely magnificent animals. Great white sharks, didn't see any of those, unfortunately, but magnificent animals we know that are there. Lots of sea lions. Just an amazing array of wildlife. Of course, the people are great, and there's a huge amount of history or historic stories around how people have tried to live on the Auckland Islands. There's been a lot of lives lost on the Auckland Islands. For me, I found that really interesting, but not as interesting as the wildlife I saw and the adventures I had. But that's just me coming from a true biologist point of view. The people, though, that I went with, absolutely spectacular people, solidly grounded, absolutely passionate about what they do. And I just absolutely, we arrived not knowing each other. We left as sort of lifelong mates. Absolutely amazing. Just some more images. Of course, living on a boat. Hugely challenging, trying to pour a cup of tea through a tea strainer while the boat's moving. I can't describe how challenging some aspects of these 2 weeks were. Absolutely no contact with home. We got partway into our trip when we heard about the Kakura earthquake. So we actually really had no idea heading home what we were coming back to. We got snippets, of course, and we had a satellite phone we need to ring into, but it was just quite isolating. But that was really refreshing in some ways. What I really want to get across here is that we actually are all learners. There are lots of opportunities for teachers to go and extend yourself, to take up those fellowships, to get out there and experience life yourself. What I want to say is, take those experiences, tell those stories, be passionate and inspire your students back in the classroom. Understand the power of experiential learning. I am a real advocate for environmental education. I've breathed and lived it and experienced it and taught it, and for many, many years. They are opportunities where you can create significant life-changing teachable moments for your students that they will remember for their lifetime. And it's not that hard. You can do this outside the classroom, inside the classroom. It can be done. So take the risk. And it's actually teachers that should be pushing those boundaries, not the other way around. Our students shouldn't be pushing them. We should be pushing out those boundaries. So just what I say to you is get amongst it. Take those opportunities to hug a tree at least once a day and just take on the adventure and run with it. You will never, ever look back. So that's it. That's me. I will pull everyone back up again. Oop.
I think there was just an overwhelming feeling of envy there. Amazing. Time for one quick question while Emma gets set up.
Oh, I have a question about the kakariki. Yeah, like were they bigger than the New Zealand version, or just
no,
still the same size?
Yeah.
Were there any other sort of species that you noticed were larger, just being based or isolated in the Auckland Islands?
The plants certainly were larger. So the kelp was humongous. And I was over at Waihi Beach last weekend, and I was looking at the kelp there thinking, oh my God, that's so small. So everything's larger. The mega herbs are mega herbs because they have large leaves. The adaptations that particularly the plants have to that really harsh environmental conditions, the amount of rainfall, the peaty soil, is really amazing. They've all got very thick, waxy leaves. So, those sorts of things really excite me to see such a different environment, yet it's still part of New Zealand.